Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So today we got a pretty big leak for really all of the big three today, being Nintendo, PlayStation, as well as Xbox. Seems like some unannounced games for 2022 might have been revealed for the Nintendo Switch, while a pretty exciting exclusive might be going over to the PlayStation 5, and then an upcoming game that we keep hearing about for Xbox might have just got a little bit more information thrown out there. So we're going to go over all of those three things later on in the video. First, though, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV had a really good 2021, and it was kind of a perfect storm when you really think about it. It all kind of started with the World of Warcraft community being upset with that game, and after a streamer decided to move over to Final Fantasy XIV, much of the community did as well. And from that point forward, Final Fantasy XIV has just been growing and growing in terms of popularity. Then you kind of fast forward, and Final Fantasy XIV was not only ported over to the PlayStation 5, but there was also that big Endwalker expansion, and this is whenever everything just kind of bubbled over. This game is just so incredibly popular right now, and because this is an MMO that requires servers for the community to play on, well, because so many players are flooding this game, they just don't have the server space to deal with that capacity of players. And because of that, they actually had to halt all sales for Final Fantasy XIV back in December. Yeah, you would think that that's a good problem to have, but this has left a lot of customers unhappy, and it's also hindering Square Enix on reaching potential customers at the same time. So they're going to want to get this fixed as soon as possible. And well, the good news is that as of now, Final Fantasy XIV sales will resume on January 25th. Now, the way they're doing this is by adding a new data center for the Oceania region on January 25th with 5 separate worlds. They do say that there should be more than enough room for everyone in Oceania to transfer over to. Beyond that, though, they did say that they're going to be expanding their North American, European, and Japanese data centers throughout 2022 and even into 2023 to kind of deal with all of the congestion that this game has been having as of recent. Now, I know some of these solutions aren't necessarily going to be instant or anything. This is just another problem that is linked to the semiconductor shortage. But at the same time, the good news here is that you will once again be able to pick up Final Fantasy XIV here starting on January 25th. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is something that I'm actually personally really excited about, and that is the Steam Deck. Unfortunately, Valve back in November did announce that the Steam Deck was no longer going to hit that original release date for December 2021, but instead it was delayed for 2 months, making it a February release. The thing is, though, is that there's still been a lot of doubt surrounding the Steam Deck and whether or not it would actually reach that February release. There's been a lot of rumors that that original delay was not just because of logistic issues, but also because the Steam OS itself. There has been some reports circulating that it just wasn't quite ready as of December, so would a 2-month difference really solve all of the problems? And well, the good news here is whether or not that was even true in the first place, it does indeed look like the Steam Deck will release by the end of February. They did post an update for the Steam Deck saying this: "First and foremost, we're on track to ship Steam Deck on time. Global pandemic, supply issues, and shipping issues notwithstanding, it looks like we'll be able to start getting these out the door by the end of February. You can view your estimated reservation available window here in case you've forgotten." Of course, that last line is actually going to be very important because it really depends on when you got your reservation in for the Steam Deck and when you'll actually receive it. If you reserve this much later, there's a good chance that you will not get your device in February, but it does look like a large portion will start to get their Steam Deck as of next month, and I do find that to be incredibly exciting. The Steam Deck is just such a versatile console on paper. I mean, this thing is going to be able to play a large portion of Steam games, which actually includes Xbox games, it includes PlayStation games, as well as a number of independent games, third-party titles. I mean, the Steam library itself is already massive. But then if you want to, you can install something like Windows and then also play Xbox Game Pass games. That is absolutely incredible. Or maybe you want to go ahead and emulate other consoles. That is something that we've talked a lot about in the last year or so, with the Xbox Series being a great emulation console. Well, the Steam Deck is possibly going to be another great emulation console, and this is also a handheld. So again, this is a very versatile console, and if you have been looking forward to the Steam Deck and you already got that reservation in, well, the good news is that you very possibly might get to play it for yourself sometime at the end of next month in February. Moving on though, we're actually going to talk about a pretty big leak here regarding both PlayStation as well as Nintendo. We'll kind of get into the Nintendo stuff here in just a moment, but this is actually coming from Nate the Hate, which has a pretty good reputation online as an insider. He has leaked out some information in the past that's turned out to be accurate, and so that's why we're going to kind of talk about this stuff today. Now, I just want to kind of lead off that the PlayStation stuff, he never actually says if this is coming from insider information or if it's just speculation. Now, I've seen a lot of people take it as a leak, and that's why we're going to talk about it, but you should probably take this part with a grain of salt, though you really should probably do that anyways when it comes to any kind of leak or rumor. But nonetheless, he does say that he believes that both Persona 4 and Persona 6 will be revealed in 2022 as a part of that Persona anniversary. Atlus does have the Persona anniversary going on now, and they have stated that they will be making some Persona announcements throughout this year all the way up to September. So this is certainly not out of the realms of possibility, but this is the part that kind of threw people for a surprise, because here he says that Persona 4 will be revealed for PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, though that's actually already been rumored. But however, he says that Persona 6 will be announced as a PlayStation exclusive. That is a very specific thing to state, though he didn't necessarily elaborate on it, and this has caused a lot of discussion online about the future of Persona. A lot of people were kind of hoping that this next Persona game would go multi-platform, because for Atlus and Sega, that would make perfect sense. The Persona franchise has definitely been growing here as of recent, especially after Persona 5, and these are very high quality games that would probably be beloved on all platforms, as we saw with Persona 4 on Steam. So with all that in mind, you would think the next Persona game would be multi-platform, as it could continue to help grow the franchise. But this is Atlus we're talking about, and the one thing that I have consistently complained when it comes about Atlus, yes, they do make very good games, but in terms of their business strategy, they do truly baffle me with some of their decisions. I mean, this is the studio that made Persona 3 and Persona 4 exclusively for PlayStation, and then they turned around and decided to do Persona Q as a Nintendo 3DS exclusive. I mean, how much sense does that make whenever this is using the Persona 3 and Persona 4 characters? And they do this type of stuff time and time again. So would it really surprise me if Persona 6 ended up being a PlayStation exclusive? No, not really. Does it make much sense? No, not really, but it doesn't really seem to matter when it comes to Atlus in general. They do this type of stuff time and time again, though I will say that there has been some rumors for quite a while that maybe PlayStation actually has some of these Persona games locked down, and that's why they haven't appeared on other consoles. Maybe they do have some kind of exclusivity deal with PlayStation, and I do think that that would make this situation make a lot more sense, but we'll kind of see about all this. I'm still taking this as nothing more than a prediction and rumor myself, but I will say that I am very hopeful that Persona 4 gets announced for PlayStation and the Nintendo Switch sometime this year. That is such a great game, and it's actually possibly my favorite JRPG of all time in terms of its characters and story. I do personally like it much more than Persona 5. I know Persona 5 is more popular, but I like the characters and stories so much more in Persona 4, so hopefully that does go to more platforms sometime here soon. Now, it's this next part, though, where things get really interesting, because this is where Nate the Hate actually says that these are confirmed titles, or at the very least, they're based off of educated information. So we do have some clarification this time, and if all this turns out to be true, Nintendo is going to have a pretty massive year in 2022. I mean, we already have games like Pokemon Legends Arceus, Splatoon 3, there's Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and possibly Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, so they already have some big games coming throughout 2022, but according to Nate the Hate, they do have more coming, including a new Fire Emblem game that apparently is going to be developed by the Three House developers. Then you have the possibility that Xenoblade 3 could release in 2022, though he does note that it might be pushed back to 2023. And then also, the one that I'm personally really excited about would be a remaster of Metroid Prime. He does state that a remaster of Metroid Prime will release in the second half of 2022, a part of Metroid Prime's 20th anniversary, which does actually make a lot of sense. Now, I do understand that a lot of people want the entire Metroid Prime trilogy to be ported over to the Switch, and hopefully that does eventually happen, but I do think a remaster of the original Metroid Prime, if done right, does have a lot of potential. And what I mean by that is that you fundamentally need to change the controls of that original Metroid Prime game. I know that the Wii version incorporated motion controls, and a lot of people like that, but they really need to fix the standard controls of this game, because just doesn't handle very well. I would like to see them do what they did for Zelda Skyward Sword HD on the Nintendo Switch. Make this game work better with standard controls, and if they could do that for Metroid Prime, that alone would very well make a Metroid Prime remaster worth it, in my opinion. I mean, you got to think that this game is already viewed as one of the greatest games of all time, and I mean, if you can improve it, by all means, I'm on board. Now, hopefully, though, if this report is indeed true, I would still like to eventually see Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 eventually head over to the Switch as well, because I think the entire trilogy needs to be ported over to this platform before Metroid Prime 4. That's just my opinion, but I mean, we're dealing with Nintendo, so we'll kind of see what happens with all of this. Now, as for you Fire Emblem fans, though, it definitely seems like you all have a lot to be excited about. As I said, he did talk about a new Fire Emblem game that's coming sometime in 2022, coming from the Three Houses developer, but he also did say that a Fire Emblem's Genealogy of Holy War remake is in development, though it's more likely to release in 2023. So for you Fire Emblem fans out there, you have a lot to be excited for, and I just think that the next couple of years, it's looking, once again, really good for the Nintendo Switch. But as always, take all this with a grain of salt until confirmed by Nintendo themselves. If you do want to listen to more of what Nate the Hate had to say, though, I will leave a link in the description below, because he goes over a lot of different stuff in that particular video. Now, one last thing that we're going to talk about here real quick is Killer Instinct. We have been hearing a lot about Killer Instinct here recently, and the possibility that it might be returning this generation to the Xbox Series. A well-known insider, Special Nick, did state here recently that Killer Instinct is in active development, though he does not know what studio is actually working on this game. Now, I've actually speculated in the past that maybe Microsoft could be building their own studio to work on Killer Instinct. We'll kind of get back to that here in just a moment, but interestingly enough, we did get a small little update on this possible Killer Instinct game that is in development. Jez Corden over on Windows Central posted a big article on what's the deal with Killer Instinct. And this is just kind of going over some of the rumors that surrounding Killer Instinct, but one interesting thing that is stated in this article is this: I have also heard the vaguest of unsubstantiated rumors that one of Bandai Namco's fighting game development teams may be involved, although I haven't been able to independently verify that yet myself. So there you have it. According to him, there is a possibility that Bandai Namco is the studio working on the next Killer Instinct game. Now keep in mind, though, that this is not confirmed, as he very clearly points out, but this could actually be possible. Now, ideally, the studio that would be working on this next Killer Instinct game would be either Double Helix or Iron Galaxy, considering that's the two studios that worked on Killer Instinct last generation. But the problem with those is that Double Helix has since been acquired by Amazon, so that's not exactly possible. And then as for Iron Galaxy, they're busy with different projects, so that kind of has left Killer Instinct in a bit of a limbo. So that's been kind of the big question surrounding this game. Who can work on the next Killer Instinct game? And well, Bandai Namco actually does make sense. They have a lot of experience with fighting games, whether that be with Tekken, they've worked on Soul Calibur, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and even Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And I think that one right there is the most important part of this, because it shows that Bandai Namco is willing to partner up with a first-party studio. The other part about this, though, is that we have seen Xbox recently hire fighting game talent over at Xbox Game Studios Publishing. They did hire several developers from NetherRealm Game Studios, and this just kind of adds more fuel to the fire that maybe they are indeed working on a new Killer Instinct game. And now that we're hearing about a possible studio that's working on this project, it just seems like more and more evidence is mounting up for this Killer Instinct reboot for the Xbox Series. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you have a Steam Deck reserved? And if so, will you be keeping it? As we talked about earlier, we do now have a confirmation that the Steam Deck will be releasing in February, hopefully, unless something else happens. But right now, it does look like it's slated for a February release, so let's just go and check out how many of you all will actually be picking this thing up sometime next month. As you can see here, 11% of you said that yes, and you will be keeping it. 2% of you said yes, but you won't be keeping it. 3% of you said yes, but still undecided. 28% of you said no, but want to get one in the future, while 55% of you said no and have no interest at this time. Now, I think the most interesting number here is actually that 31% of you all are either undecided or are considering to get one in the future. And what that tells me is that a lot of you all are waiting for reviews of this device. Actually, I saw several comments stating just that. And that is very understandable. There's still a lot of questions about this device and how well it can handle games, how well it can deal with something like Xbox Game Pass, how well it can emulate other platforms. I mean, there's still a lot of questions when it comes to the Steam Deck, and we're really not going to know those answers until we get it into our own hands. And that's where those reviews are going to be very important for this device, especially since this is their first console. What I will say though is that I am optimistic based off of their past hardware. The Steam Index turned out to be a great VR headset. They had the Steam Link, and though that thing isn't necessary anymore considering you have an application that can do that, for the time that that thing released, it did work relatively well. I still have one myself. Then there's the Valve controller, which I also bought. It didn't necessarily replace a mouse, but it was still an innovative and creative idea that you don't really see anywhere else, and it's a pretty nice controller, all things considering. So I am pretty optimistic that the Steam Deck will turn out to be a great device, but we will get to see that ourselves very soon. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.